Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Performance Reviews, More Than a Tick Box Exercise. For those of you who've not seen me before on the Lanteria webinar series, I'm 𝗓𝗓𝗢𝗏. I am the Managing Director of HR Star. I've been working in HR for over 20 years, and HR Star was set up 7.5 years ago primarily to do HR differently. So we focus on enhancing the employee experience to create highly engaged teams that drive business success. So whilst we look after a variety of businesses, their people, their HR needs, our pure focus is around how can we get the best from our people by investing in them. And one element of that is what we're going to explore today is the performance review. So what we will look at today is performance reviews. Are they still relevant? How to run an effective performance review, and performance reviews in a hybrid world. We all are seeing more and more of this now in terms of people working hybrid. So how do we ensure our performance reviews stay relevant or adapt accordingly? And then use performance reviews to enhance employee engagement. So as I touched on, something that we do at HR Star is look at creating highly engaged teams. So how are we using our performance review process to help with that? There will also be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. So, performance reviews. Often referred to as appraisals, they are a performance management tool. The value of annual reviews has increasingly been challenged in recent years. However, performance appraisals remain an important part of the performance management cycle. So as I touched on there, they really traditionally were something, I suppose, that were wheeled out once a year. Everyone dreaded them. You'd sit down with your manager, go through a lengthy form. It would take a long time. You'd wait a long time for the write-up, and then it would be filed away, and very unlikely anything would happen to it as from a result of that meeting. I think that's a traditional or, maybe an approach that people have experienced. But, in my opinion, performance reviews are so important. They are an opportunity to jointly review performance between a manager and their employee. They should help improve the employee's performance by identifying strengths so that they can be fed into succession, promotions, learning and development plans, and weaknesses. So again, we can, find out where our employees need more support. The performance cycle is something that, in my view, should be a continuous process within an organisation, from having regular one-to-ones, mid-year reviews, to then the annual review. And it should be something that feeds into your learning and development planning, succession planning, annual reward and recognition. So why the bad press? Why do performance reviews get negative sort of feedback, or why do people dread them? I think here are some of the reasons. The fact that the process is not clear or transparent, so people aren't sure when the reviews happen or what to expect from the review, what's going to happen as a result. I think, quite often conversations around pay are expected within performance reviews, and I think it's really good to be open and transparent that if you are going to have these conversations, let your employees know that, so they're not sat there throughout the meeting waiting for that conversation to be had. Also, make it clear in terms of the areas that will be discussed within a performance review, as in, is it a time to check in on, and it should be objectives, goals, etc., performance against those. And so also in terms of transparency, be clear in terms of when the appraisals happen throughout the year, what happens in terms of, are they fed into learning and development plans? Are they used as a recognition and reward tool or part of that process, and also the timescales around that. So when you've had a performance review, when are you likely to sort of see the results of that, or to feel the impact from those reviews? I think they also get negative feedback due to it being an opportunity for managers to give bad news. And, I've always said nothing should come as a shock in the appraisal process. So if there is feedback to give to your people, you should be doing that in the moment. You should be doing that in a timely manner and not saving it up for that review process. If they're not aligned to company goals and objectives, again, they can feel quite meaningless, quite disjointed. So, when we're looking at reviewing goals, progress, etc., it should be against the performance of the company and highlighting ways that the individual has contributed to the results as well. No constructive feedback provided. I think sometimes, depending on the experience and skill of the manager, those difficult conversations can be avoided, or feedback's given without sort of any sort of pointers on how improvements can be made, or what that means in terms of like role progression, etc. So they need to be constructive. Not a two-way conversation. I think we've probably all experienced when we've sat in an appraisal process and the information's sort of being delivered by the manager, and the manager's giving feedback, and there's not been an opportunity for you as the person being appraised to give your feedback or your thoughts on that. So I think, and that's another way that they not add as much value as they should if it's not a two-way conversation. Lack of recognition. So if you feel that your efforts, your results have gone unnoticed, and I think traditionally and quite rightly, you expect that to be recognised within an appraisal situation. If they're not, then it can feel disappointing, demotivating. And then again, if nothing changes as a result, so if you have these conversations and things are agreed, or goals and objectives are talked about, if you talk about progression and you talk about sort of anything regarding a potential promotion, salary reviews, etc., and then nothing is followed up and nothing happens as a result. Likewise, if you don't get some follow-up in terms of written follow-up or a written account of the appraisal for you to refer back to, then again it can feel a bit pointless as well. So I think as well, other reasons to consider why bad press around performance reviews could be if they're not updated in line with the company culture and ways of working. And we'll touch on the hybrid approach a bit later. But I think, companies evolve, and we've definitely seen the need to adapt and change over the last few years. I think we need to be looking at our appraisal process and changing and evolving with the business, with the company. And again, finding out what our employees want from that process so that we can adapt accordingly. I think if something you haven't done for many years and you just keep doing the same process and feel like it's not adding value or it's not quite working, it's a good idea to review that process. And then I think if they're just held in isolation, like I said, and not a part of an ongoing performance feedback loop, then again it can feel a bit pointless or not as value adding as it can be. So again, I think nothing should come as a surprise in the appraisal review, and it shouldn't be something that we just do once a year. It should be part of that ongoing process and really just an extension of those regular one-to-one and feedback sessions that you're holding with your people. So are they still relevant? Yes, absolutely. I think whilst outdated approaches still exist, more and more organisations are realising the value of performance reviews when done right. They provide useful feedback to the company. They help improve motivation, drive career development, help business achieve their goals. And I just think the benefits far outweigh, the time it will take to prep or hold these meetings. They're really, really important. They provide useful feedback. They give your people a voice. We know that voice is a key driver in motivation and engagement. And they really are an important part of that employee life cycle. If we think about, the cycle that our employees go through within an organisation, performance is a huge part of that, and being able to review performance, being able to have a conversation in a setting that is, structured around these types of conversations to talk about, where can I progress? How do I progress? What are my development needs? How do I get promoted? To really have structure around those conversations gives a lot of clarity to both, the business and the individual. So 100% is still relevant, but I think we do need to move on from, traditional approaches and look at adapting our performance reviews in line with how we have evolved in the workplace. I've touched on quite a lot of these already, but just again to highlight the benefits of performance reviews. So they should be a productive conversation. It should be a tool to help people succeed within the organisation. They build trust and rapport, especially if we are supporting and training our managers to have open, honest conversations and to be able to give constructive feedback. They give employees a voice, and as I've just touched on, it's so important for people to feel that they are able to share their experience within the organisation, and also to be heard and to hear what their managers have to say to them. They identify development opportunities. So we know that if we can develop talent from within, it's great in terms of, again, feeding into that motivation and engagement piece. And when we're looking at, retention, we want to be able to hold on to our talent. So let's identify development opportunities with them. Let's look at feeding that into their succession planning, their career development. They achieve business goals. So if we're able to align individuals to the company goals and ensure that through their own achievement of goals, we're developing and succeeding as a company, they will feel part of the bigger picture. They'll understand the why and how their role fits into the success of the organisation, another key driver of engagement. And again, they motivate and engage. And I think a great way of updating our review process is by looking at our company values. We know company values play a huge part in creating and setting the culture for the organisations. The organisation that we work in. So the culture is derived from values and behaviours. So let's feed that into that appraisal process. Let's bring those values to life by looking at how individuals are aligning to those values, how they're adding to that by making it part of our review process. It's also an opportunity for us to pause, step back, reflect, redefine priorities, review where we are at in terms of individuals, in terms of career development, salary, expectation. It's just a great opportunity to carve out some space to actually sit down and spend time with our people to really talk about the things that matter to them and that matter to us as a business. So I think move away from thinking of it just as something to tick a box and we have to follow a form, and think more of it as actually a space to have some really productive, constructive conversations. I just thought it was interesting to share some of this information with you as well, in terms of companies that conduct effective performance reviews are 30% more likely to meet their financial target and 3 times as likely to manage change successfully. I think that's really significant in terms of meeting our financial targets as a business. I think it's always important now more than ever as businesses to be running effectively and to be, achieving, especially as, it's challenging time. So if we can make that happen through putting in, performance reviews and constructive performance reviews with our people, let's do that. Performance management is a process that should include goal setting, as I've talked about. Set your business goals, feed those down to teams and individuals, feedback, but make sure that's constructive feedback and feedback that's two-way. Give, a space and make it possible for your people to give their feedback to. Development, again, people want to feel that they're developing, they want to achieve. So let's have a conversation with them about how we can develop the skills and tools, etc. they need. Recognition. So again, we know that's a huge part of engagement. So recognizing people's efforts, the value that they add, but also recognizing when maybe they may be struggling and that they need some additional support, or something isn't quite right, or something's not quite right in their role, or things aren't quite aligned. So let's have a conversation about that. And this really then feeds into the coaching. Let's talk to them about how we can help them and support them. Let's set those expectations and coach around what it is and what we need from them, and find out what they need for us to succeed. It should be a two-way process, and if they win, we win as a business as well. But it really does need to be built on a foundation of trust and empowerment, and incorporate a constant flow of communication, as I've touched on. we want this to be an opportunity where it's consistent, its feedback is seen as the norm, where people are comfortable with discussing their performance, both ways in terms of from a manager and an employee point of view, and where, we can look at it being something that is the norm, where we talk about any problems and work together to solve them. And I also think it's a really great opportunity to identify how well-being can be supported. So, checking in again with our people. How are you feeling? If they haven't met their goals, why do we think that is? Is there anything more that we could do to support? And so just, again, really use the time as an opportunity to build on that relationship, to find out, what you can do to support your people and set those expectations. They're really clear on what they need to do for you. So in terms of some tips of running effective performance reviews, feedback and recognition needs to be a consistent priority within an organisation before, during and after performance reviews. So it's quite, let's keep this simple. Let's get buy-in from our people and, let's link it to the business. But also let's make sure that, we're really clear on what that process is. Let's give them the time and space beforehand to prep for these reviews, to ensure that, they have the time within the reviews to give feedback, to have the recognition, and let's make sure that those conversations continue long after the actual performance review meeting. As I touched on, performance and recognition are considered the norm. Reviews will be less anxiety-inducing, and employees won't have such a negative perception. It will be seen as just an extension to that continuous conversation that you're having in the organisation around performance. And then they will be seen as a positive, formal exercise designed to help growth within a consistent, empowering culture. So again, not something to be feared, not something that produces anxiety, or that we roll out once a year as a box, ticking exercise, that we actually use that as a tool for change, for a tool for rewarding, recognizing and giving feedback as part of a continual performance management loop. So let's communicate the benefits to our people, ensure it is understood why the performance review is important, how it relates to the company goals, and that is a constructive conversation. So transparency, be really clear with your people about your performance management process, how it's going to work, what you expect from it, what they should expect from it. Demonstrate the benefits. So if employees don't believe anything will change the result of the performance review, they're less likely to engage in the process, and it will become nothing more than a box ticking exercise. So let's make sure that, when we talk about everything within the performance review, that we follow up on it, that we're going to, do those things that we say we're going to do, and create the right culture. So look at your culture, ensure it's one of positive feedback and recognition. And I think this is really important. I think when we talk about performance management, it's so easy just to assume that that's a negative, or we're just going to be talking about poor performance. We need to shift that so that it's seen as actually a constructive, positive tool, that, reviewing performance is a positive, talking about how people are getting on, talking and giving feedback and recognizing and rewarding, like these are positive actions. So let's change the narrative. Let's, ensure people see that performance reviews, performance conversations, it's a positive, not something to fear or to be seen as a negative. So in terms of performance reviews in a hybrid world, so hybrid work models are used by 63% of high growth companies now. And I think we'll just continue to see that number rise and rise. I think, we adapted really well during the pandemic to remote working. I think people now are liking balance, and obviously I know it differs in organizations and by individual, but having that balance of being able to work remotely, but also to have that face-to-face and that in-person interaction in the office. So hybrid work requires a higher degree of trust between leaders and their teams, as well as culture that's focused on results rather than hours worked to achieve them. I think if we look traditionally, when we were traditionally in the office, in person, you could judge, or maybe rightly or wrongly, like people's output or their efforts by actually seeing those people. But I think we need to understand that we will have to adapt now, so we can still have that same approach in terms of communication, transparency, positive conversations, giving feedback, recognizing, but it's just a new way of measuring performance now with hybrid working. And I believe it's probably the right way, where we look at measuring output and results achieved rather than the time spent at work. So in a similar way to holding traditional or performance reviews in office or in work environment, let's set clear goals. Ensure everyone has a clear understanding of what results need to be achieved. And this is why I think it's really important to link this to the business goals. So as a business, we want to achieve X, Y, and Z. Okay, what does that mean for me as an individual? How do I know that I'm achieving by making sure my goals align to the business goals? I will also feel a sense of purpose when I can see the work that I'm doing is having an impact on the wider organisation. So tying goals to company objectives, as I just said, before setting individual goals, be clear on what the company is trying to achieve. I think, in an ideal world, the performance management and performance review cycle would be that we set our company goals first, and then we look to feed those down to team and individuals. Focus on results, not time. So shift the focus away from time spent on a task to value added and results achieved. And I think in a hybrid world, when we're not able to have those water cooler conversations, when we're not able to just sort of, lean over and talk to somebody sat next to us, or to see people in person every day, make that extra effort to put tools in place that we can measure results based on that, the result, measure performance based on the result, the output, rather than just the time spent, in office. So the link between performance and employee engagement. High-performing employees are the most engaged. So we really want to do everything we can to ensure that our people are able to perform, and to perform really well. And the way that we do that is by having a performance cycle of, regular feedback, setting expectations, being clear on our goals, having structure in place to measure and manage this. Constructive feedback is a motivator. High-performing employees love feedback, so it's really important that we're giving constructive feedback. And when done right, performance reviews are an effective driver in retaining top talent. We've seen recently the challenge in attracting and retaining top talent. So if we want to hold on to our top talent, our high performers, we need to ensure that we are giving them consistent and timely feedback, constructively setting goals, and ensuring that these reviews happen and that they do lead to change and they are followed up on. So why is it important to have engaged employees? So an engaged employee is someone who feels valued. They go above and beyond. They are more innovative. They take less time off sick, and have less performance issues, and are less likely to leave. An engaged workforce is the key to business success. If we have highly engaged, highly motivated, and productive people, our businesses are going to thrive. And we just need to invest some time in resource into creating these highly engaged teams. And the performance review and managing performance is a huge part of that. And it really is important to ensure that we are doing that, to ensure we have high performing and highly engaged people. And these are just some of the reasons why, businesses who have a highly engaged workforce succeed. 37% of employees consider recognition most important. So again, we will use the performance review as a tool for recognition, for recognizing, good performance, for value add. These teams who score in the top 20% engagement experience are 59% less turnover. We know the challenges with having high turnover. Recruiting is hard, it's challenging. Not only is it costly, we lose time in terms of, replacing people, inducting them, bringing them up to speed. So if we can hold on to our top talent, it's only going to, benefit the business. So let's do everything we can to do that. Measuring and giving feedback on performance is key to that. So again, I won't read them all now, but they, really, really key to understand the importance of engaged employees, that the impact it has, and how the performance review and performance and managing performance is such a key part of that. How can Lanteria help with this? So Lanteria is an amazing tool for, performance management and performance reviews. So we can drive productivity and engagement of employees for outstanding business with Lanteria's employee performance solutions. So there is a dedicated area, like a module within Lanteria for performance, in managing performance. So we can establish a collaborative review process with automated workflows, reminders and notifications, resulting in more accurate results in a short amount of time. So it's great for in terms of, when we're living in a digital world, so making our performance reviews more digital, easier to use, more collaborative. It's only going to enhance the value that it adds. So you create easy to use evaluation and review forms for various review types, for different employees. We really can, using Lanteria, tailor the process to our people and identify and develop the top talent in the organization, which obviously increases retention, promoting our best people, ensuring a solid succession plan. And we can get analysis, and this is great. Data is so important. So by using a tool like Lanteria, to enhance our performance management and our performance reviews, the data that it can provide to us is just, it's amazing, and it will only go to enhance the whole process. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. I would love any comments or questions from our attendees today. So if it's something you want to pick up outside of this, then you can find me on LinkedIn, Kelly Tucker, or contact me via the HR Style website or via Lanteria. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon at one of our next webinars. Thank you.